Alexander the Great, the guy who conquered half the known world before 33, inspired 1,000 baby names, and probably had abs sculpted by the gods. But while everyone was busy fangirling over him, his crew, those equally insane, brave, and occasionally unhinged companions, got left out of the spotlight. Imagine a rock band where only the lead singer gets credit while the drummer fights off lions, the guitarist invents siege towers, and the bassist writes the actual lyrics. This is their story. The backup dancers of empire, the forgotten legends who made Alexander, well, great. So, before we start throwing spears or shade, like, subscribe and hit that bell like it's charging across the Granicus. Before Alexander became the human version of a world domination cheat code, the world was basically a high school full of overdramatic cliques. The Persians were the wealthy seniors, throwing the biggest parties but slowly losing their cool. The Greeks were the drama kids, brilliant, emotional, constantly at war with each other over who invented democracy. And then there was Macedon. Picture Macedon as the weird transfer student from the north. They smelled like horses, were really into spears, and no one invited them to the toga parties. Until King Philip II, Alexander's dad, rolled in with the military version of an Excel spreadsheet and reorganized the entire kingdom like a boss. He turned Macedon into a flexing war machine, conquered Greece, and was about to move on Persia until, oops, assassination. Then came Alexander, 20 years old, genius, raised on Homer, Aristotle, and probably way too much self-confidence. He took over his dad's army, looked east and said, "Let's do this." But behind him were the real MVPs, generals, advisors, and companions, who made the dream possible and got little more than a footnote in return. Hephaestion wasn't just Alexander's best friend. He was his soulmate, confidant, maybe more, depending on how scandalous you like your history. He commanded armies, built cities, and acted as Alexander's stand-in when the king couldn't be everywhere at once. He wasn't just the right hand, he was the right soul. At one point, Hephaestion literally built bridges across rivers faster than other commanders could figure out which way north was. And when Alexander started going full god complex in Persia, Hephaestion backed him up, smoothed political messes, and made diplomacy look easy. When Hephaestion died suddenly in 324 BCE, Alexander lost it, like burned down a city, and demanded he be worshipped as a god level of grief. Even the Persians were like, "Yo, chill." His funeral, giant pyre, thousands of animals sacrificed. Alexander reportedly slept next to his body. Moral of the story, behind every world conqueror is a best friend handling the logistics, the press, and the posthumous cult planning. Parmenion was the kind of guy who brings snacks and strategy. He served under Alexander's dad, Philip, and was basically the wise old coach of Team Macedon. He helped win every major early battle, Granicus, Issus, Gaugamela, you name it. And when Alexander was off charging into Persian armies like a man possessed, it was usually Parmenion cleaning up the mess. But here's the kicker. Parmenion's son, Philotas, was caught in a shady conspiracy. Alexander didn't just execute the son, he had Parmenion murdered too, just to be safe. Talk about trust issues. One moment, you're the MVP general. The next, stabbed in the back because of your kid's bad texts. Eumenes wasn't Macedonian, he was Greek. Worse, he was a secretary, but he was brilliant. Alexander saw his brainpower and made him a key strategist. This guy pulled off battle tactics like they were Sudoku puzzles, except instead of numbers, he used elephants and war chariots. After Alexander's death, Eumenes outwitted bigger, badder generals for years. One time, his enemies tried to starve him out, so he tricked his own soldiers into believing the gods were on their side by faking omens using pigeons and burned scrolls. Result, morale boost, victory. He was eventually betrayed and executed by jealous Macedonian nobles, because of course he was. But hey, if Netflix ever needs a brilliant nerd warrior series, Eumenes is your guy. Coenus, the man who said no to Alexander while everyone was chanting one more city, Coenus was the guy saying, "Bro, chill, we're tired, we're done." After 8 years of non-stop conquest, Alexander wanted to push beyond India. His soldiers were sunburned, homesick, and done with eating snake stew in monsoon season. Coenus stood up and told Alexander to his face, "The men will follow you, but they're dead inside." And miraculously, Alexander listened. Then, in classic ancient history twist fashion, Coenus died almost immediately afterward, probably from sheer relief, or malaria, or plot convenience. Either way, he saved thousands of lives, and earned the title of that guy who finally said what everyone was thinking. Roxana, the diplomatic wildcard. Roxana was a teenage noblewoman from modern-day Afghanistan. Alexander fell for her after a siege, which is definitely not how Tinder works, and married her for love and politics. She wasn't just arm candy, she was a symbol of unity between Greeks and Persians. She traveled with Alexander, learned Greek, and adapted to life in a political blender, but after Alexander died, she and her son were seen as threats to rival generals, so they were removed. In ancient terms, murdered quietly and inconveniently forgotten. Roxana played a key role in Alexander's later empire building and paid the ultimate price for being inconvenient in a boys' club. After Alexander's death, the empire splintered like a dropped wedding cake. His so-called successors immediately turned on each other like reality show contestants fighting over a fake throne. Most of the heroes we mentioned, dead, erased, or quietly slandered by later historians. Hephaestion became a tragic footnote. Parmenion, a cautionary tale. Eumenes, executed. Coenus, forgotten. Roxana, erased. The spotlight remained on Alexander's statues, cities, legends, but the real lesson behind every great, there's a dozen forgotten legends doing the hard work and taking the fall. So next time someone tells you history is just about great men, remember, the so-called great men usually had a friend with a sword, a nerd with a plan, and a wife keeping alliances from collapsing. These forgotten heroes didn't just support Alexander, they were the reason he conquered the world. But hey, no statues for the backup dancers. Like, share and subscribe if you want more unsung history. And tell us in the comments which forgotten hero deserves their own movie. Spoiler, it's Eumenes.